Okay, so welcome back to another no budget film review, and this time we're going to be looking at a film called Conflict by director Amrit Kosa. I'm probably saying that name wrong, so apologies in advance. And we're going to be marking this film out of 10 across 6 categories, which include storytelling, cinematography, sound and music, editing and special effects, acting, and production value. So with a possible 60 points up for grabs and Major Red Flag being the only film on the scoreboard, let's watch Amrit Kosa's Conflict. So just like the last time, we're going to start with this film's storytelling. And I'm going to be completely honest, I've watched this film several times now, and I'm still not sure if I understand the meaning behind it. But let me explain. On the surface, this film is about 3 characters, a young boy called Stephen, a Tai Chi grandmaster, and a very angry man called Jimmy. And as the story begins, we see that Stephen is being bullied at school and so has chosen to learn self-defense. The problem is that Stephen is learning Tai Chi, which after doing some research can require months of movement training before it can even begin to be integrated into combat. Maybe you should have picked a different martial art, Stephen. But just as the two are focusing on their inner peace, Jimmy clearly has some unresolved issues, and although the old man gives him permission to train, this clearly is a little distracting. And what's interesting is that we see Jimmy through 2 different perspectives. That of the young boy who sees him as a physically capable role model, and that of the grandmaster who sees him as a teenager with anger problems. But anyway, Jimmy's rage kind of brings the mood down. And after Stephen's lesson, he bumps into Jimmy outside smoking a cigarette, and he really has nothing nice to say about the old man.
That old man in there, he can't help you. He doesn't get it. What it's like growing up in a place like this.
And with that, Jimmy walks off, leaving the young boy to decide, should I learn Tai Chi or Kung Fu? No, but seriously, I know this film can be interpreted much deeper than that, and I know that there are many layers to this film, but I'm just telling you what I got out of my first watch, and it was pretty underwhelming. And look, I don't think I'm the smartest person in the world, but I know I won't be the only person who doesn't understand the subtleties and nuance and allegory behind this film. I watched Conflict several times. I know that Amrit Kosa is interested in unearthing the experience of underrepresented Indian and Chinese minority groups across the world. I know that Tai Chi is one of the most difficult martial arts to learn, and I think I know what you were trying to say with this film. But I don't know if people will put in the same effort that I did. This is a 5-minute short, and if not only for time, I don't know if people will understand that this is a film about ostracization, about the pros and cons of integrating into a society that possibly doesn't want you, about the value of patience and the toxicity of rage. I genuinely think some people might just think this is about Tai Chi and Kung Fu. And for that reason, I would give this film's storytelling a 5 out of 10. I think your surface level story wasn't really that entertaining, and if your larger ideas had came across, I would have given this a much higher score. Okay, so cinematography. I think this film had some really nice looking shots and a great cinematic feel about it. The lighting was soft and A good level of contrast allowed emphasis on expressions. And there was also a lot of motivated camera work that showed you were really comfortable in this area. And it really is the small things like this that lift your cinematography to the next level. Not just shooting two people in frame talking, but focusing on reactions, establishing where we are, and using camera movement to imply something about the story. These are things that keep an audience immersed, being shown and not told these little bits of information. Frankly, it's a much better way of watching something. There were some points where I thought the lighting changes were a little obvious, but I really am being picky at this point. So I would give this film's cinematography a 7 out of 10. It really felt like your strongest asset as a director, and purely because the film was so minimal, there wasn't really enough to give you more than this. So let's talk about the sound and music. The sound was actually pretty consistent throughout this film. There wasn't really a moment that I couldn't hear what was being said, apart from maybe this line.
My mom says you shouldn't smoke.
But I did keep thinking, why am I able to hear car horns or emergency vehicles in the background?
I don't like Tai Chi.
And look, I don't know the problems you faced on location, but considering how minimal this film was, I think the sound here could have been a lot cleaner. There's also these little audio dips that seem accidental. And I know this seems like a small thing to pick up on, but I know that it's something that could have been fixed. The music was also pretty sparse. The same track played at the beginning as it did at the end. And not that that's a problem, I actually thought it was fitting for a Buddhist temple and a Tai Chi lesson. And even the lack of music throughout felt intentional and showed your choice to focus on the story. But with all that being said, I would give this film's sound and music a 6 out of 10. It was definitely above average, but noticing the things that you could have fixed in post stopped this from getting a higher score. So let's move on to acting. The two elder characters in this film did a really good job. They felt really authentic and grounded in reality. The old man was soft-spoken, caring, wise, and could also be assertive. And judging purely on aesthetic, he looked like a Tai Chi grandmaster. Jimmy, on the other hand, was the angsty teen with a chip on his shoulder. And I really felt his latter scenes with the young boy showed a great confidence in his acting ability. I've noticed that actors can feel uncomfortable with the space between dialogue, not knowing fully how to express themselves in silence. I really like how this character leaned on the use of a cigarette to separate his words here.
He doesn't get it. What it's like.
So I would give this film a 6 out of 10 in terms of acting. I probably would have given it a 7 if Steven's character wasn't so unconvincing, but the story was so minimal that I really couldn't have graded it much higher. So I thought the production value here was pretty impressive. It really felt like I was watching a professional production for the most part, and that's an achievement within itself working with such a small team. It looks like you found an actual Buddhist temple for your shoot, which already has its own inherent characteristics and colour. And I also really like the clothing you chose for this setting. And the choice to have the young boy wear light blue that contrasts so much with the environment really shows that he's the focus here. At least I believe that's a conscious decision. There was also visual consistency throughout this film. Nothing was underlit or overexposed. And I actually preferred the look of your exterior footage to that of the Buddhist temple. And that might be purely for my love of sodium vapor lighting. God, that sounds sad when you say it out loud. So I would give this a 7 out of 10 in terms of production value. I think you did a lot with the story you had, and you also showed me you cared about your movie. So, editing and special effects. Now, there wasn't any special effects in this movie, so we're just going to talk about the editing, which I think was really well paced. Nothing felt drawn out or too quick, and we really did spend enough time with each character to develop a connection, or at least form an opinion on them. The colour of this film was also pretty well executed. It felt very natural and not overdone, and that really fit in with the reserved plot. One thing I did notice is that there were a few cuts that didn't match the character actions, and not that this took me out of the movie, but for a 5-minute short, I would have expected the cut matching to be better. So I would give this film a 6 out of 10. It felt like a really appropriate cut for the film and expressed all the feelings you wanted to get across. I can tell that you're a very talented filmmaker, but there wasn't really enough here to show me what you were truly capable of. Okay, so we're at the scoreboard for the second time, and Conflict has taken the lead over Major Red Flag. And look, pretty much in all technical aspects, this is a better film. Did I enjoy Major Red Flag more than Conflict? Yes, maybe I enjoyed this a little more, but I felt Conflict was a very consistent film that was trying to overachieve in parts. And you showed signs of being a very promising director that I would like to see more of, because in all honesty, this film's story felt like it was limiting your skills. And with all that being said, stay creative and stay safe.